Forget Ferraris. What you are about to see will completely shatter your understanding of a supercar. Today on Ultimate Machinery, we are exposing the top 10 most bizarre, illegal, and mutated speed machines ever forced onto the asphalt. We are talking about cars so dangerously fast they were permanently banned from racing, and aerodynamic freaks that belong in a sci-fi horror film. You absolutely need to stick around until number 1 to witness a 6-wheeled mechanical monster that took 30 years to build. If you crave raw, unfiltered automotive insanity, hit that subscribe button right now. Let the madness begin. Starting off our list at number 10, we have a machine that looks less like a track weapon and more like a piece of vintage aviation history. Enter the Spyker C8. When you think of the Netherlands, you probably do not think of hyper-exclusive supercars. But Spyker, a company with deep roots in building aircraft engines dating back to World War I, decided to build a car that pays ultimate homage to the skies. The exterior is certainly quirky, featuring a wide, gaping grille and an abundance of polished aluminum vents that look like jet intakes. But the real bizarre factor of the Spyker C8 lies inside the cabin. This is not just a car, it is a mechanical art exhibit. The dashboard consists of engine-turned aluminum panels, identical to what you would find in a 1920s fighter plane. The absolute centerpiece is the exposed gear linkage. Instead of hiding the mechanical movement of the shifter under a leather boot, Spyker left the polished chrome linkage entirely exposed, running horizontally across the cabin. Every time you shift gears, you see the raw mechanics of the machine working in perfect, beautiful harmony. Powering this piece of rolling art is a highly reliable 4.2-liter Audi V8 engine, pushing out around 400 horsepower. It is a beautifully weird blend of old-school aviation aesthetics and modern German muscle. It delivers a driving experience that feels incredibly analog and raw, ignoring modern screens for pure mechanical engagement. The Spyker C8 is undeniably a stunning work of art, a true tribute to the golden age of flight. But prepare yourself, because our next car looks less like a plane and more like a doorstop sent from the distant future. At number 9, we are traveling back to the late 1970s to look at one of the most extreme wedge designs in automotive history, the Aston Martin Bulldog. Let me put this into perspective for you. You have a significantly higher chance of winning the lottery than ever seeing one of these on the street, because only one was ever built. In 1979, Aston Martin wanted to prove they were the undisputed kings of engineering, so they created this absolute spaceship. The Bulldog is astonishingly low, aggressively angular, and features massive gull-wing doors, ready for takeoff. The centerpiece of this bizarre design is the hidden cluster of 5 headlights mounted in the center of the hood. They drop down like a secret weapon. But this was not just a design exercise. Aston Martin engineers gave the Bulldog a monstrous 5.3-liter twin-turbocharged V8 engine. The primary goal? To create a car with a low enough drag coefficient to shatter the 200 miles per hour barrier. Back in 1980, they managed to hit 191 miles per hour, before the company ran out of money and the entire project was unfortunately scrapped. In a beautiful twist of fate, the car was recently fully restored by a dedicated team of engineers. Decades after it was originally built, the Bulldog finally hit that legendary goal, clocking in at 205.4 miles per hour on a test track. It is an incredible story of redemption for a car that was heavily mocked for its bizarre appearance. British engineering is incredibly cool, and the Bulldog proves it, but hold on to your seats, because you need to wait until you see the 8-headed mythical dragon that was born in Japan. Coming in at number 8 is a car that begs a serious question. Is this a visionary masterpiece or an absolute design disaster? Tell me what you think in the comments below. This is the Mitsuoka Orochi. Built in Japan, this is what the creators proudly call a fashion supercar. Mitsuoka is a boutique manufacturer known for taking standard production cars and giving them wildly polarizing, retro-inspired fiberglass bodies. But the Orochi was an entirely bespoke creation. The bizarre design is heavily inspired by Yamada no Orochi, a legendary 8-headed Japanese mythical dragon. Just look at it. The front grille looks like a menacing, grinning mouth ready to strike. The headlights look like the piercing cold eyes of a reptile, and the body lines curve and weave like organic muscle tissue. It is genuinely unsettling to look at from certain angles, blending aggressive automotive design with biological horror. But here is the truly bizarre part of the story. While it looks like an alien hypercar ready to devour the competition on the track, the mechanical reality underneath that wild exterior tells a completely different, much tamer story. Hidden inside sits a completely sensible, incredibly reliable 3.3-liter Toyota V6 engine, pushing out a very modest 233 horsepower. The Orochi is not meant to set lap records or break the 200 miles per hour mark. It is meant to break necks as you cruise slowly down the street. It is the ultimate exercise in pure form over function, a supercar built entirely for dramatic visual presence. We have seen Japanese fashion, but now it is time to shift gears and experience some raw, unapologetic, and massively powerful American nostalgia. Number 7 takes us back to 1969, to the golden era of heavy American muscle cars, and the brutal battleground of the NASCAR Aero Wars. Say hello to the Dodge Charger Daytona. Listen closely to the sound of that V8 engine. If you were a racing fan in the late 1960s, you know that aerodynamics were just starting to become a major, undeniable factor. Dodge was struggling significantly on the high-speed superspeedways, so they took their iconic Charger, threw it into a wind tunnel, and created an absolute mutant of a racing machine. To achieve maximum aerodynamic efficiency, they bolted a massive 18-inch pointed sheet metal nose cone to the front of the car, cutting through the air like a knife. But that was not enough. To keep the rear wheels planted firmly to the pavement at extreme speeds, they bolted an absolutely comical 23-inch tall rear wing onto the trunk. Why exactly 23 inches? Mostly so the trunk lid could still fully open. The result was a drag coefficient of just 0.28, which was an engineering figure practically unheard of back in 1969. The Daytona was an absolute revelation on the asphalt. On March 24, 1970, it became the very first car in NASCAR history to officially break the 200 miles per hour barrier. It was driven fiercely by the legendary Buddy Baker. It looked incredibly bizarre and it was hated by traditional purists, but it dominated the track without mercy. The Daytona was an absolute king of speed, completely changing how racing engineers thought about airflow, but it was only a matter of time until its corporate cousin took things just a little bit too far. At number 6, we have the legendary Plymouth Superbird. If the Daytona was the wild prototype, the Superbird was the ultimate calculated refinement. This is the ultimate band hero of American muscle. Plymouth desperately wanted their star driver, Richard Petty, to return to their racing team. To lure him back, they promised to build an even more aggressive aerodynamic warrior. The Superbird took the Daytona's bold formula and perfected it. The pointed nose cone was reshaped. The massive rear wing was angled slightly differently for even more brutal track-gripping downforce. Under the hood, this bizarre machine housed the legendary earth-shaking 426 cubic-inch Hemi V8 engine. It was often painted in incredibly loud, high-impact colors with a literal Roadrunner cartoon graphic proudly displayed on the wing. It was an absolute weapon. It was so aerodynamically superior and so incredibly fast that it terrified the nervous executives at NASCAR. It dominated the 1970 racing season so completely that it forced a major rule change. NASCAR implemented strict engine displacement rules for aero cars the very next year, limiting them to smaller engines. This sweeping rule change effectively banned the mighty Plymouth Superbird from fair competition forever. Today, these bizarre muscle cars are considered automotive royalty. They command auction prices well into the millions of dollars. They represent a time when raw horsepower and crazy wind tunnel experiments ruled the world. The Superbird was forcefully banned for being far too fast and aerodynamic. But surprisingly, so was our next car on the list. The only difference is that our next car is notoriously ugly, built entirely out of plastics, and lacks a massive V8 engine. Number 5 brings us to the ultimate track underdog story, the Consulier GTP. Built in the late 1980s by a brilliant but eccentric economist named Warren Mosler. The Consulier GTP is widely considered one of the ugliest sports cars ever put into production. It literally looks like a cheap kit car assembled in a shed. It has terrible physical proportions and a completely flat, uninspired front end. But Warren Mosler did not care a single bit about aesthetics or making a beautiful car. He cared strictly about raw physics and lap times. The Consulier GTP was a true pioneer. It was the very first production car to use a body made entirely of carbon fiber and Kevlar composite, meaning it had absolutely zero structural metal. As a result, this bizarre machine weighed an astonishingly light 2,200 pounds. And what massive engine did he put in it? A humble 2.2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine from Chrysler. It sounded like an absolute joke until it hit the track. Because it was so incredibly light and featured such an advanced, rigid chassis, magic started to happen. The Consulier GTP completely destroyed Porsches, Corvettes, and Ferraris in professional IMSA racing. It humiliated the heavy, massive V8 supercars so consistently that the racing governing body slapped it with a harsh 300-pound weight penalty. Eventually, they banned it entirely just to give the major auto manufacturers a fair chance to win. It was ugly, but it was a true giant killer. From lightweight plastics and small turbocharged engines, we now move to brutal asphalt-crushing aerodynamics designed by German engineers who wanted to bend the actual laws of physics. Coming in at number 4 is a car that operates purely on the principle of extreme violent downforce. This is the Gumpert Apollo, designed by Roland Gumpert, the former director of Audi Sport. The Apollo makes absolutely zero apologies for its looks. It does not care if you think it is ugly. It was designed with one singular terrifying purpose: to stick to the track like glue at blistering speeds. It looks less like a road car and more like a Le Mans prototype that accidentally got lost on the highway. Every single vent, scoop, dive plane, and huge rear wing on this massive wide-bodied monster serves a highly functional aerodynamic purpose. Powered by a heavily modified mid-mounted Audi 4.2-liter bi-turbo V8 engine, the later versions pushed out nearly 800 horsepower. But the raw speed was not the craziest part of this vehicle. The aerodynamic engineering was so aggressive that Roland Gumpert famously claimed, "The Apollo generated an unbelievable amount of grip." He confidently stated it could theoretically drive completely upside down on the ceiling of a smooth tunnel. Provided it was traveling at a sustained speed of 190 miles per hour, the aerodynamic downforce would easily overcome gravity itself. It was a brutal, uncompromising machine. It set stunning lap records around the world, punishing anyone who dared to push it to its limits. The Gumpert Apollo is a legendary testament to raw engineering madness. If you think the Apollo is aggressive and weirdly proportioned, you really need to wait until you see the terrifying deep-sea creature that we affectionately call the Batmobile of Le Mans. Number 3 takes us deep into the wild realm of Gothic automotive design with the Panoz Abruzzi, officially dubbed the Spirit of Le Mans. Unveiled to the world in 2010, the Abruzzi is easily one of the most physically imposing and bizarrely proportioned supercars ever conceived by man. It features an incredibly long sweeping front hood, a tiny teardrop-shaped cabin pushed all the way back to the rear axle, and a huge front fascia that looks exactly like the gaping maw of a terrifying deep-sea predator. Panoz completely ignored traditional mid-engine supercar layouts, opting instead for a massive front-mounted V8 engine pushing well over 600 horsepower. But the weirdness does not stop at the exterior design. Instead of standard carbon fiber, the body of the Abruzzi was constructed using a proprietary material called REAMS. This stands for Recyclable Energy Absorbing Matrix System. Panoz strongly claimed it was lighter, stronger, and completely shatterproof compared to carbon fiber. Furthermore, instead of a traditional single radiator, it cleverly used a bizarre three-stage trifecta cooling system. This unusual system utilized ambient air flowing over the car to cool the engine fluids. They boldly intended to build a highly exclusive run of exactly 81 cars, but the massive project mysteriously faded into complete obscurity. It never reached full production. It remains a massive front-engine ghost in supercar history. That is certainly a weird, hulking track car. But what if you do not want a car at all? What if you actually want to strap yourself into a fighter jet and fly it legally down the highway? At number 2, we have the Tramontana R. Built in Spain, this vehicle completely blurs the line between a high-performance street car and an open-wheel Formula One racer. Most supercars force the driver and passenger to sit side by side. The Tramontana R aggressively throws that traditional rule out the window. To achieve absolute aerodynamic perfection and perfect lateral weight distribution, it uses tandem seating. The driver sits dead center, exactly like in a fighter jet, and the passenger sits directly behind them under a sleek glass canopy. With its fully exposed inboard pushrod suspension, massive front wing, and strict carbon fiber chassis, it looks exactly like a track-only experiment. But sitting just inches behind the passenger headrest is a colossal Mercedes-Benz 5.5-liter twin-turbocharged V12 engine churning out 720 horsepower. Because the entire car weighs next to nothing, the power-to-weight ratio is absolutely terrifying to experience. It delivers a raw, visceral, open-wheel driving experience that you can legally take to the local grocery store. It is pure, concentrated adrenaline designed for the absolute thrill-seeker. The Tramontana R proves that you do not need doors to create an automotive masterpiece. We have seen massive rear wings, we have seen fighter jet canopies, and we have seen cars banned from racing. But what happens when the traditional four wheels are simply just not enough? What happens when a brilliant Italian engineer spends 30 years trying to solve a problem that nobody else even knew existed? Stick around, because our number 1 bizarre supercar is going to make you question everything you know about automotive physics. And now, at number 1, we reach the absolute pinnacle of automotive insanity. This is a story of crazy, unrelenting engineering persistence. Behold, the Covini C6W. Yes, your eyes are working perfectly fine right now. That is indeed a 6-wheeled supercar. Ferruccio Covini, a brilliant Italian engineer, was deeply inspired by the legendary Tyrrell P34 6-wheeled Formula One car from the 1970s. He became entirely obsessed with the bold idea that a 6-wheeled street car would be dynamically superior to anything else on the road, regardless of the complexity. In fact, he proudly spent roughly 30 years trying to make it a reality. However, the engineering logic behind the Covini C6W is visually bizarre, but completely sound on paper. By having 4 smaller wheels at the front, the car effectively doubles its front-end grip. It provides massive fade-free braking power because there are 4 front brake rotors doing the work instead of 2, and amazingly, it almost entirely eliminates the dangerous risk of hydroplaning in the heavy rain, because the leading tires clear the water for the tires directly behind them. Furthermore, if a front tire magically blows out at 180 miles per hour, you have 3 others to keep the car perfectly stable. Now powering this 6-wheeled freak of nature is a screaming 4.2-liter Audi V8 engine. Developing a steering rack that perfectly turns 4 front wheels simultaneously was a monumental engineering nightmare, which is exactly why it took 3 decades to perfect. Ultimately, the Covini C6W is ultimate proof that, in the world of supercars, sometimes the absolute most bizarre, crazy ideas are actually the most brilliant engineering solutions. And there you have it, the most bizarre, extreme, and insane supercars ever built. From the banned aerodynamic brilliance of the Plymouth Superbird to the 6-wheeled madness of the Covini, which of these freakish machines would you actually want to park in your own garage? Is it the track-dominating Consulier or the fighter jet Tramontana? Let me know in the comments down below. Make sure you smash that subscribe button and keep the engines revving until next time.